News show finale. Hello, dear viewers. You are watching The Week in the USA, a review of the most interesting, significant, and sometimes surprising events that have occurred over the past 7 days in the United States. This is Hamster NBC, and today's episode features: the U.S. federal government remains effectively shut down. The shutdown continues, affecting tens of thousands of people and impacting aviation, services, and budget programs. The trade war with China has escalated. Donald Trump announced a 100% tariff on Chinese imports. The fate of federal employees is at risk. The possibility of not compensating workers temporarily placed on unpaid leave is being discussed. Air travel is under threat. Thousands of flights are being delayed or canceled due to staff reductions due to the shutdown. Zelensky as request for new aid. The Ukrainian president will fly to the U.S. for talks on the supply of missiles and air defense systems. And also less high-profile but emotionally charged stories: a political assassination in Utah, growing protests, and social tensions within the country. 1. Shutdown, an unfinished budget and the consequences. Since October 1st, the U.S. federal government has been officially unfunded due to the failure to agree on a budget for the new fiscal year. Wikipedia, as a result, approximately 900,000 employees have been furloughed, while another 700,000 continue to work without guaranteed pay. Key agencies, such as the Centers for Disease Control, CDC, or the National Institutes of Health, NIH, are forced to suspend some programs and services. 1. Threat of non-payment of compensation. The Trump administration has issued a memorandum stating that mandatory compensation for workers placed on unpaid leave is not guaranteed. It was previously believed that the government would eventually refund wages for normal times in some form when the shutdown ends. Now, however, the situation is less certain. Aviation disruptions. One of the most visible and tangible consequences is mass flight delays and cancellations. The reduction in the number of on-duty aviation industry employees, dispatchers, and TSA officers leads to disruptions. As of this week, over 12,000 delays and approximately 200 cancellations have already been recorded nationwide. Travelers are canceling trips, rescheduling itineraries, especially during peak tourist season and holidays. Economists and analysts estimate that each additional day of the shutdown will cost the country's economy approximately $15 billion. 2. A new round of the trade war with China on October 3rd. Donald Trump announced the imposition of a 100% tariff on Chinese goods, responding to China's recent measures to restrict exports of rare earth metals essential for the U.S. technology and defense industries. The tariffs are expected to take effect on November 1st or even earlier, depending on China's actions. This move is an escalation of the trade conflict, which had been relatively under control after a series of negotiations and compromises. Markets reacted sharply. The Dow Jones plunged nearly 900 points. The S&P 500 lost 2.7%, and the Nasdaq fell about 3.6%. Furthermore, China has already launched antitrust investigations against Qualcomm and Nvidia, which could mark the beginning of a retaliatory strike in the tech war. Trump also hinted that a meeting with President Xi Jinping, planned for the APEC summit, might be canceled. 3. Political assassination and alarming signals on September 10th. Charlie Kirk, a well-known conservative activist and speaker, was shot and killed in Utah. He was speaking on the campus of the University of Utah when he was fatally shot in the neck from a building approximately 142 yards away. The suspect, 22-year-old Tyler James Robinson, surrendered to authorities shortly after the incident. The killing sparked a storm in public discourse, with many seeing it as a manifestation of increased political polarization and violence in American society. President Trump and senior party officials used the tragedy as a pretext to escalate rhetoric against left-wing political extremism. This, in turn, has drawn criticism from human rights activists who fear that such statements could be used to suppress the opposition. 4. Zelensky travels to Washington, focusing on long-range missiles. Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky is planning a visit to the United States for talks, focusing on his request for long-range Tomahawk missile systems and air defense systems. This move carries an important domestic aspect. The Trump administration has already stated that it might approve such supplies if the conflict is not resolved. During his visit, Zelensky intends to meet with U.S. lawmakers, defense and energy industry representatives, and may also meet with Trump himself. Russia, for its part, is reacting with alarm to the prospect of new American arms deliveries to Ukraine. Warning of a deterioration in relations. This diplomatic escalation should be viewed as part of a global influence play. The U.S. is attempting to maintain key positions in defense aid to Ukraine, while China and Russia are intensifying their own geopolitical maneuvers. 5. Social background and protest activity. While federal news sets the tone, a number of social movements deserve our attention. Social tensions persist within the country. Protests against the administration's policies, criticism of immigration policy, minority rights, and disagreements over healthcare and education are becoming increasingly contentious. While large protests have not recently made headlines, experts note that an atmosphere of instability and mutual distrust is growing. Media outlets are recording an increase in themes of citizen militias, protection of constitutional rights, and active civic engagement. Conclusion: a week of anxiety and change. This week, the United States has found itself in a state of mounting crises. From the budget impasse to a sharp deterioration in relations with China, from massive flight delays to a tragic assassination. If the shutdown continues, its consequences could have far-reaching effects on government services, the economy, and public trust in government. The trade war, if it continues, could hit both growth and technological leadership. And domestically, Americans are finding it increasingly difficult to find common ground as political polarization breeds suspicion at every turn. Next week, we'll continue to monitor congressional negotiations, possible tariff easing, China's response, and market behavior. We'll also be monitoring the developments in the assassination investigation and the public response. Thank you for your attention. See you in the next edition of The Week in the USA.